Welcome to the 2018 PropTech Challenge presented by REBNY. I'm Sandy Jacolow, Chief Information Officer of Meridian Capital, and I'm here with Carlos Valverde of Silverstein Properties, who also is the construction manager at 3 World Trade Center, and we're here to talk about the AEC and development competition. Carlos, first of all, let me congratulate you on opening 3 World Trade Center. It's a fabulous building, design-wise, architecturally, and even from a smart technology environment. Yeah, as we talk about AEC today, it's a phrase that a lot of people may not understand in the software development community. Do you want to just give people a sense of an overview of what AEC really means?
Sure. AEC stands for Architecture, Engineering, and Construction, and it's a term used in the industry to sort of encompass a lot of the design, consultant, general contracting space within the industry.
So literally it's everything from the foundation to the steel,
Correct,
to the glass and everything in between as well, plumbing, electric.
Correct. The art and science of construction, design, engineering, and everything that you need in order to create these buildings here in New York City.
Right. You know, it's interesting. I happened to see a recent 2018 from June census report, which talked about construction spend being $1 trillion industry in this year, and actually more than that. How do you see innovation changing the development cycle and process?
Well, development, real estate development, obviously different than tech development, has been very slow to adapt to technologies. It really wasn't until the late 70s, early 80s that computer-aided design, CAD, or other technologies really started infiltrating the industry. And because most buildings are still built by hand, men and women using their hands and tools, hand tools to build these, and the industry has been very slow to adapt. And so what we're seeing right now is it's a resurgence in technology, an openness to acceptance of technology. And so that's why this challenge is so exciting, that we can see what can be done in the future.
You know, when you think about how quickly things change and when you have thousands of people on a job site, communication has to be a challenge and collaboration. How do you see technology trying to help with that? And what are some of your pain points when it comes to collaboration?
Right, so communication of critical importance in the success of any project. In any given project, you have 2 or 3 owners representatives plus construction manager, which manages another 50 to 60 subcontractors, about a dozen or so consultants. And so all these decisions, all this information needs to be translated not just to the people that are signing the checks, but also to the men and women that are working, actually putting up the wall, the steel, the concrete, whatever it may be. And so the flow of information, constant update, and then construction itself. In any given project, in Tower 3, for example, we probably process over 100,000 pieces of paper. And so it's very important to have, 1, the correct pieces of information, and 2, the most recent pieces of information. So collaboration, communication is a critical factor for success of any project.
You know, when I think about all the manual efforts to build a building, in this case, 80 plus stories, doing the manual inspections have to be such a laborious process. When we think about drones and what they're capable of doing, and particularly within a building, so you don't have to deal with some of the flight restrictions that we have in New York City. Where do you see drones possibly being a solution?
I think drones have a huge potential within buildings to do walkthroughs, inspections, to be able to get into confined spaces, to be able to get into elevator shafts or areas where it would be hard for people to get in. So I think drones, as they start to evolve and become more of a tool of the industry, I think it's something that a lot of people will want to play with first and try out, and then with the correct application, it could become an industry standard in the next 5 to 10 years.
It's funny, as I've watched 3 World Trade being built, and you watch construction workers who have done such an incredible job, and we're all so thankful for them, because without them we wouldn't have these amazing buildings. Right. You watch them hanging from a rope to kind of put the curtain wall in, and I never even thought about kind of just hanging in the elevator shaft, really, as you have to do the inspections. Let's talk about safety, because safety is important, because it's really about the people, and the people what really get us here.
Right. Safety is the paramount factor in all construction companies and any construction site. And so for us to be able to apply technology to safety, whether it's wearables or whether it's just technology that helps you communicate certain critical or dangerous areas is, I think, something that there's a lot of companies trying out there. There's a lot of sort of ideas being floated around. What we would like to see, obviously, is something that is very likely to be implemented on projects of this size and really a smaller scale. But the idea is that it's something that can actually be used, and not just a concept, but really something that is tangible, that you can actually use for somebody's safety.
Yeah, well, and you think about safety being, where are people, how they're communicating, and you think about drones, that sits there and says, okay, well, we need some kind of visualization.
Right.
Because aside from the architecture being just so fabulously visual, where do you see visualization coming into play when you talk about, AEC development and everything from safety on that?
Right, so visualization, picture paints 1,000 words, right? And sometimes it's very hard for decision makers, whether it be tenants or investors, to see what the architect or the engineer or the construction manager is trying to communicate without renderings or plans. But even when you show people renderings or plans, it's even hard for them to really think three-dimensionally, or it's sometimes 4D, time, right? So we think that augmented reality and visualization is the future, so that people can really touch, or not physically, but to have the sensation of proximity, of closeness, of what the finished space is going to look like. So for us, it's not just about what BIM has done in the past 20 years, because it's been a really successful technical tool. I think what we also want to see here is a visualization tool that's user-friendly, and so that for us is also a very exciting possibility.
Well, with 3D printing, you are going to actually be able to touch
Right.
it soon. You use an acronym called BIM, and I know there's another one, CAD, that you and I have
Right.
talked about. Do you want to just explain what BIM and CAD are, so when the software developers think about software that they may have to integrate with, and how it gets not only into visualization but collection of data?
Sure, so there's hundreds of information out there, and websites and general knowledge about what BIM and CAD is, but very briefly, CAD is computer-aided design, which Autodesk is sort of the pioneer on having the software that basically eliminate hands drawings and allows you to develop large-scale construction documents, which are contracts that we use in order to provide to give awards, to give contracts, to scopes of works to contractors. BIM is Building Information Modeling, and it's a tool that's been developed over the last 10 years to make these CAD drawings smart. So it's a 3D visualization tool where you render and build all the pipe and ductwork and conduit that you require in order to coordinate a space so that it fits within the tolerances of the ceiling height, or for hospital of a operating room, or whatever it may be, because you want to be able to have sort of prior to going out in the field, everything laid out so that when you're out there in the field building, everything's coordinated, the pipes aren't hitting each other, you're not in each other's way, and it's a really interesting way of organizing information. And now BIM has developed also into every component being smart. Every component has a tag that tells you its origin, the size of it, and it could be developed really into, once the building has an operator, if I'm missing, a widget here or a part here, I can go buy it online with just a click of a button, or it can tell me what the life cycle of it is, and if it's due for maintenance or repair in a month or 30 days or whatever. So it's a very interesting way of just making 3D models smart now.
It's also interesting as you say that, and you talk about some of the engineering challenges. This also in some way ties into the other challenge category of operations and maintenance, because the engineers ultimately need to know about everything your team is putting in from mechanicals. So
Right.
it's amazing how really all of this really ties together. And I also think about visualization. We've now are in a world where tenants want amenities. Some of that's been driven by WeWork. We see that at Silver Suites. Where do you see these tools and the collaboration helping the architects design better spaces for our clients? Because at the end of the day, it's all about making the space more effective for
Right.
the tenants and residents.
So what's very interesting in development is we sit today to think about what people will want in a building when we're complete with it, which is in 5 years, 6 years, 10 years at a time. And so there's a lot of tools that are out there, and there's a lot of data that's out there that it would be great to have aggregated in some sort of dashboard, that we can see what the trends in populations are, the trends in the neighborhood are, the different news and the different trends that are affecting our decision-making abilities in order to have amenities or the way people work or the way people live, so that we can start realizing and making these decisions not so much from the gut, but with data, right? So that to us is something that's interesting as well.
Well, it's interesting when when you talk about all the Internet of Things sensors that go into a building, whether it's from an HVAC perspective or a lighting perspective, which help control energy, again, another connection to operations and maintenance, or you think about the wearables that, the construction crew may work, all these are points of data.
Right.
And how do you see, call it predictive analytics, artificial intelligence, helping transform the industry? Because a lot of what we do in development and construction is repetitive, so you think that it could be a lot of learning and a lot of insights, information. So where do you see that, which kind of, goes to what you were just talking about?
Without a doubt, there is hundreds of data outputs that construction and that we and in design and development that are out there in the world that are just really not being retained and analyzed and processed in a way that is useful for real estate developers. And so one of the things that we're looking for is, how do you capture all these outputs that are out there, all this information that's out there, and really turn it and digest it in something that is very useful? Economic trends, the news, what's going on in a neighborhood, the price of LIBOR and steel that day, and all these different pieces of information that it'd be great to have to make decisions on whether we add 5 more stories, 10 more stories, whether we add this amenity or that amenity, how we configure apartments in an apartment building, whether it's 1 bedrooms, 2 bedrooms, 3 bedrooms, how many. So we think that there's information out there that just hasn't been harnessed in the correct way, and we would like to see that.
Well, it's interesting. There are so many data sources out there for leasing, and we obviously, again, another tie-in to the brokerage category that we have. When you think about some of the information that's available on some of the major websites and even from some of the government sites, understanding that data and aggregating that data and layering it onto what you're talking about seems like it would absolutely be invaluable. And knowing that, to your point, rents are increasing in a certain area, you may decide to shift your construction. So it's a set of really the on-site,
right,
kind of information points of running the building, and even when you think about operations, there are data points from existing buildings. Maybe we build out the environmentals a little bit differently to the data points in the industry, and then you bring them all together, and then you really understand both sides of it.
Right. There's got to be a convergence of what all the different entities that go into building a building should be merged into sort of a powerful tool. We have, from the onset of a development, what our acquisitions folks and what our investment folks are looking for. There's hundreds of data points that they make a decision on, then into what the design should be based on trends, population, what's going on, what is our competitors are doing, and then the construction. How do you become more efficient, more lean, faster, more economically effective? And then from the operation and life cycle of the building, again, there's hundreds of buildings out there that are producing information that are really just known to a couple people that run that building. And so to be able to have this data melting pot, if you want to say so,
right,
it'd be great to just have that tool.
Yeah, it's truly how we've all become connected by data.
Right.
So, as I think about all the software developers listening to this and thinking about joining our competition, what one piece of advice would you give them?
I would say do something that we can really use, not in 10 years from today or 5 years today, but that we can use within a year's time. I think a lot of people, when are designing and developing these buildings, there's a lot of money and inherent risk out there. You don't want a product, an app, or a piece of information that gives you even more necessary risk. So we want to be risk adverse, but we also want something that is helpful to what we're doing on every day. So, in a nutshell.
And it's got to be easy to implement and functional at the same time.
Absolutely. So you got to be able to convince the end user that this is something that they want. It's going to make their life easier because they're using your widget application, etc.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting, and as you know, as part of PropTech Challenge, we're going to have ongoing mentoring and a feedback loop as software developers, start to ask questions and need a little bit more guidance. So, yeah, I'm thrilled, and we're thrilled that you're going to be part of that process as you start to engage and talk to them about some of the challenges. Right. So, Carlos, thank you very much.
Can't wait.
So, thank you for listening, and you can sign up at proptech.devpost.com or follow us at proptechchallenge.com. Thanks again, Carlos.
Thanks, Andy. Take care.